Welcome to Real Women's Stories. It's January 2025. I hope you guys have had an amazing time over the festive period. I know that I'm really, really rested. I have got a little bit of a cold going on, so apologies. It's that time of year, isn't it, where everyone gets the sniffles. So please excuse me if I do have a few little sniffles and my voice sounds a little bit hoarse. I really wanted to bring back Andy Ramage because after having chatted to him in 2024, I decided to embark on my own sober journey. And boy, it has been a bit of a struggle. I'm not going to lie. It has been really difficult for me at times. So, the purpose really of this episode is to ask Andy if he can help me through some of these challenging times that I've been going through. Because I guess, like a lot of you're going to be doing dry January. For me, it's not just about dry January. It's about continuing my journey throughout 2025 and really taking the onus of, do I want to have a drink? Can I have a choice of not drinking? And really, is it going to benefit me moving forward throughout my year? Which so far, I can really only see the positives that have come out of being sober and not drinking and having a choice. That's been the biggest take home for me, is that when you remove the choice of drinking or the option of drinking, then you can kind of have a lot more choices in what you're doing in your life, because you suddenly find different things that you can be doing. I've been in the gym more. I've been much more active. My brain's been alive and alert, and I've got so much more energy. And this is really how I'm feeling. And this is just the start of my journey. Let's hear what Andy's got to say and how he can help you and me go on our journey of continuing 2025 of being sober and not drinking. Andy, thank you very much for coming back. Off the back of our conversation, I decided to go alcohol free. And it's not because I'm competing. Yeah, it's not because I'm competing or I've got a photo shoot. I'm doing this as a life choice for me, because I really want to see the results that you've been talking about. I want to see this change and this epiphany and this lovely light I'm going to feel. And so far, I get the weight loss. That's good. I definitely feel like I've dropped a few kilos. So 100% that works. And I definitely feel that my hormones feel a lot more balanced. I suffer with high histamine, so I'm intolerant to high histamine foods. And wine, I know, is particularly high histamine. So for me, a lot of inflammation has gone down, a lot of the swelling, the bloating, water retention. Mental state is great. I'm able to communicate so much more. I'm sharper with my words. Sleep isn't as good as I thought it was going to be, but then I've never been a great sleeper. I really, however, am struggling with temptation. So first of all, I actually put it out there to our listeners, and I asked them if anybody wanted to ask you a question.
How easy has it been for you to stay sober? Do you have difficult days when you want a drink? And have you put anything in place to help you? Do you follow any kind of program? I mean, he's always comes across as being this fabulous, positive energy, but are there days when it's more difficult? Bye.
Do you have days which are harder than others? And what tools do you use to keep on track?
Really good question. So absolutely, I think life is triggering, isn't it, in different ways. That stressful day or that overwhelming day or just that day you just want to blot out and press the effort button, as it were. So what is a really skillful thing to do is realize that that's the case, right? That's life. And I think actually one of the greatest gifts of going alcohol free is that you have to collide with life, you know, the good bits and the challenging bits as authentically you. So it's worth doing the work to come up with some different concepts and ideas to deal with those situations. For example, rather than the stressful day, you just, you know, pour a glass of wine. What else could you do? You know, what are the other things you could do to achieve the same result? So if you look at the habit loop, Charles Duhigg did a brilliant job of this. There is a trigger, routine, reward in the habit loop. So very often there's that trigger, it's a stressful day, I've just arrived home, the routine, pour a glass of wine, drink a glass of wine, reward, I feel a bit more relaxed. That's sort of a habit loop. So the best way to deal with a habit is to hack the habit rather than trying to always create new habits. So for example, let's just say there is that classic temptation moment, that trigger moment. Traditionally, you might have had a drink. What is the reward that you're seeking first and foremost? So reflect upon that. What are you looking for? A bit of excitement? You're looking a bit of connection? Is it relaxation? And then hack the habit by swapping the routine. So how could you swap that routine to achieve the same reward? So it might be, if it's relaxation for you, Lisa, it might be, actually I exercise. You know, I strength train. That relaxes me. It's like active relaxation. So it might be in that moment of temptation, there's some exercise sits in that routine. It might be that you just swap it like for an alcohol-free alternative. So instead of a bottle of beer, in my case, i.e. alcoholic beer, I'd swap it for an alcohol-free alternative. So you've hacked the habit, because that still gives me that placebo sense of relaxation and seals the deal on the day. So I think a really good tool technique for anyone listening is to become aware of those triggers. Think about the reward that you are seeking and what are the other things you can do to achieve the exact same reward that doesn't involve alcohol. And then just train that skill, because it is a trained skill, so that when those trigger moments come, instead of you just, you know, almost mindlessly reaching for a glass of wine, you get up and, you know, you go to the gym, or you know, read a book, phone a friend, or you swap it for an alcohol-free alternative because you've restocked the fridge.
Is it good for somebody to write those things down almost so they can actually see it? So for me, if I was having a moment of weakness, I can then go back to a plan and go, right, what's in my plan? What are the kind of things that would, right? Because obviously every situation is different. Every trigger moment is going to be different. So is that something that you would advise, that people actually write things, put a plan in place?
Absolutely. And what you're really training your brain here, and that's why I think going alcohol free is just a gift. You're becoming more resilient in life in many ways, aren't you? You're learning tools and techniques that make you more resilient in life. But one thing to say just briefly, we know through change, through James Prochaska's stages of change model, change is messy as well, right? So I think we all have to own the fact, and I own this for everyone, when you start a challenge, such as taking a break from alcohol, there is a high chance that at some point you will slip up, because life will get in the way and you will be overwhelmed and you won't be prepared and you won't have, you know, the nice plan in front of you, and you might turn water into a glass of wine. It's really important to own that might be the case and the story. The important bit is, rather than be ashamed or embarrassed and give up and think, that's it, I've blown it because I've done 21 days alcohol free and now I've had one drink, what's the point? I give up. James Prochaska shows us through his research that on average it takes between 5 to 7 times around like the behavioural change loop before permanent or lasting change is made. So I think it's also embracing the fact that sometimes things go wrong. You know, don't allow that to be a reason to give up. Actually, what can it teach you? How can you prepare in advance so that if you meet with a similar situation, you're more resilient the next time, rather than thinking, that's it, I've blown it, I'm out, I'm a failure. No, you're not. It's just done 21 days or 10 days alcohol free. That's incredible. What did you learn during that period? What were the wins, like you listed a moment ago? So I think it's worth saying that out loud, so everyone's not running around thinking they have to be perfect, and if they get it wrong, they give up. The opposite is true. In fact, we learn more by getting it wrong than we do by getting it right.
I know that people are going to be listening to this, and I'm on my journey too. So I am going to ask you some, I guess, controversial questions, because I go out, you've been in the city, so I go out with a client, and the only reason why I didn't drink this week was because they didn't drink. I love my wine, Andy. I'm going to want to sit there, and I know there's going to be a point in this process where I'm going to get home on a Friday night Adam's going to get out a beautiful bottle of Amarone, my favorite wine, and say, do you mind if I have a drink? Because he does it all the time. I'm like, why are you bringing this into my space? Just go and have a bloody drink and don't ask me, or don't not ask me, but don't tell me that that's what you're doing, because it's going to tempt me now. And for me, it's the temptation. How on earth do I get through that moment of temptation? And by the way, I am not going to go into the gym on a Friday night and do some strength training. I want to feel relaxed. How am I going to feel relaxed on a Friday evening? Because that glass of wine, to me, I associate with relaxation and having a connection with my husband.
Yeah, and I think this is a really sticky, tricky one for lots of people, that Friday night, feeling grown up, relaxation, connection, kind of glass of wine. So I think there's a few things around that. Really just to focus on the wins that you've gained already, and stay focused on those. And, again, it starts to become a bit more of an awareness piece around the trade. That is that one or two glasses of wine. What's that going to look like, feel like the following day, and what are the knock-on consequences of that? Is it worth it? And on reflection, maybe it is. I think that is an honest reflection to have at some point for you. And everyone's different. But equally, could you create something else that feels grown up and, a drink of some sort? Again, I think where alcohol-free alternatives have really helped with that, I must admit. So what I do, and again, I sit there and I crack open a nice bottle of beer and I really enjoy it. And I sit there and Tara has a glass of wine and I sit there and have a nice glass of beer. And that placebo, I enjoy the taste. That does it for me. That's just my story. So it might be that there's a similar thing for you that you could do. There are better and better wines now being made that, still taste really good. It's the last bastion to fall, in truth. But it might be something slightly different to that. It doesn't have to be alcoholic. It could be something else that you do for yourself. But I think sort of sitting there trying to like white knuckle it with nothing whilst Adam's sitting there having a drink or whatever, I think it's going to leave you like in a place where, you probably don't want to be.
Yeah. So I've got 3 functions coming up all in 1 month. I've got a black tie ball, a cocktail party, and a works company do. 3, not just 1, 3. How do I navigate those? I mean, I'm going to get dressed up and I'm thinking, right, getting dressed up, I feel a lot lighter, I look good. But then it comes, everyone's going to get smashed. How do I deal with that?
So what I will say, those big social events are sometimes the best part of the whole alcohol-free adventure. Very often they're the reason people don't do it, is the truth. Most people would look at their diary and go, well, I'm not doing it this month because I've got those 3 events on. But what I also see is when people do have the courage to go to those events and look good and feel good and just try something different, right? The truth is, it's probably the first time in a long time you would have been to an event like that and not drunk, first and foremost. Throw yourself into the action. Like, don't have that fear of I'm missing out and everyone else is going to be having fun and I'm not. Actually put a frame around, this is going to be something different. It's only a few hours. Maybe there's an outside chance you'll have an even better night. Maybe you'll see it for what it is and think, but Adi, thank God I'm not involved in all that carry on. And it might be that at the end of that night, you feel unbelievably empowered on your way home. That sense of, I did that. I thought that would be nigh on impossible to enjoy that. I danced, I connected, I had a ton of banter. I was sharp all night and looked incredible. I didn't, look like a lesser version of me 3 hours later. I feel really good. In fact, that's just built a newfound resilience and confidence in my life I just didn't even know was there. And then maybe the second one feels the same, or maybe the third one a bit different. But what you'll find is you'll be a stronger person. Genuinely, I believe you'll be a stronger person for those 3 events. And then what's great about that, you get to choose, don't you, going forward? You start to make empowered choices, because then you can choose, there's an event. Do I want to drink at it? Yes or no? My choice. As opposed to, at the moment, there's an event, 100% I'm drinking type of set. So often the biggest challenges are your biggest wins.
Yeah. And I will take that. Thank you. Because empowerment for me is huge. And this community is about empowering each other. And I feel that if any woman can listen to this, and if I can go through it, I'm the experiment. I don't have a goal. I'm just doing this as a life choice. I can then help and empower other people and give them my feedback. And I can get in the gym the next morning as well because I won't feel hungover. Win-win.
That's the difference right there. That's the momentum. If you compound that over the next 10, 20 years, the difference is incredible.
Just got off a call with Andy. I was really struggling and I really wanted to ask him how I was going to deal with certain situations. He's given me some practices that I can use. And I think the most important thing for me is, because I'm quite a visual person, is to write things down so I have a plan, because it's so easy to fall over and stumble in this process. And I'm actually really thinking about the times where I'm going to be going out, feeling good on my cocktail evening, the black tie ball. I'm focusing on how hot I'm going to look. I'm going to look hot. I'm going to make sure that I can fit. I've got an aim. It's a dress that I want to wear. I've got it in my head now. I'm going to wear this dress and I'm going to look hot. And actually, because I know when I don't drink alcohol, because I didn't last night, how much more conversational I am. So that means my personality is going to shine. I'm going to shine. And I hope people are going to recognize that and go, Lisa, what's different about you? And then I can say, I'm not drinking, because it takes that onus away of, do you want to drink? Oh, no, I'm not drinking. Actually, no, I'm not drinking. And I feel frigging great. I think there's a lot of pressure. The reaction that you get initially when you say I'm not drinking is like, what? Why? So that just suggests that, isn't that the pressures of society? Because really, if alcohol, let's just say alcohol didn't exist in our lives, alcohol was never been there, would we be asking that same question? We wouldn't, would we? We'd naturally go, can I have a Diet Coke, or can I have an orange juice, or whatever other drink that was available in a bar? So it's just because alcohol has been put on the table and been offered to us, and it's everywhere within our sight, dinners, pubs, supermarkets. If it didn't exist, no one would question it. If you're going through this journey, or if you want to go through this journey and you've got any questions at all that you'd like to ask me, or if you need any support, you can get in touch with me. Email me at TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. I will say it just again because it's quite a long email address. It's TheRealStoriesPodcast@gmail.com. I would love to hear from you. This is a community. I am going through this journey myself. So if anybody is doing the same or thinking of that, get in touch. I'd love to hear from you. We really want to grow our community. We want to get it out. I know we're global at the moment because I know there's people listening in Australia, even in Dubai. But in order for this to grow even more, and for us to get more support, and for us to empower everybody internationally, if you could leave us a review and if you could rate this podcast, the more reviews we get, the higher the ratings we get, the more that it gets thrown out to the wider audience. It's so important. So that's my only ask from you guys. If you could rate us and review us, we would really appreciate it. And it will help grow this community and empower all of us women. So I'll see you next time on Real Women's Stories.